Hello builders, my name is Javier Ramirez and I'm a developer advocate at Amazon Web Services. Today, I'm going to be telling you how you can migrate your database from elsewhere into AWS. Here you have my Twitter. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any feedback after watching this session, please get in touch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to migrate an Oracle database and I'm going to put it into AWS. But I was thinking, migrating from Oracle to Oracle, kind of boring. So I thought I would make this slightly more exciting. I'm going to migrate from Oracle into an Amazon Aurora with Postgres compatibility database. So at the same time, I'm going to migrate and change the database engine. And I'm going to do this as automatically as I can because, I'm a developer. I hate repeating myself. I hate doing manual things. So first things first, I'm going to show you my data set. I have an Oracle database and I have here data grip that I can use to query databases. And I have a few tables. It's a public data set from the NFL, the National Football League in the US. And some of the tables are quite boring, like the data table, which is about 2,000 rows, which is not really interesting. But some other tables, like for example, the person table, it's slightly more exciting. It's about 7 million rows, which is not too bad. Or I have here the sporting event ticket table, which is about almost 41 million rows. So still, it's not a huge database, but at least it's it's something that looks like a real data set. So you can see how it feels to migrate something. More interestingly, I don't have only tables here. I also have a lot of stored procedures, lot of code that I will also have to migrate. So my system is in sync, with the new one. And I also have a Postgres database, which right now is pretty much empty. I have only system schemas, but I still don't have any content. Let me just show you for a second on my web interface. So this is the AWS console. And as you can see here, this is just an Aurora for Postgres database. And that's going to be the target of my migration. So how are we going to go to migrate? You can download the schema conversion tool directly from AWS, and it's available for Linux, Windows, and OS X. And the first step is selecting the source of your data. In my case, I'm going to be using Oracle, but I could be also choosing a NoSQL database like Cassandra, a data warehouse like Teradata or Glimplan or Vertica, or other relational databases like SQL Server or Postgres. In my case, I'm going to be using Oracle and I'm going to be switching engines to one optimized for the cloud. I click on next and it's going to ask me my connection information. I already entered this beforehand, so I don't have to do it now. And when I click on next, it says going to connect to the database and it's going to check all the schemas available. So this is the schema I'm going to be using, the MS sample. And when I click on next, it's going to take a little bit because right now it's going to analyze how difficult this migration is going to be. So I'm going to stop for a second. I'll be with you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so it took more like 5 minutes, but in the end, I get this nice database migration assessment report in which I can see if you want to migrate from an Oracle database 12c Enterprise Edition to a database in the cloud singing engines, you have different options. First, you might want to try RDS for MySQL. In that case, you will be able to migrate all of the database storage, so all the tables, without any trouble, but you will have trouble migrating the code because only 52% of the code seems to be compatible to migrate in an automatic way. Same thing if you are thinking of migrating with Amazon Aurora with MySQL compatibility, but with Postgres, things are looking much better. With Postgres, we can see that the estimation of the assessment is 100% of the storage will be able to be migrated and 96% of database code objects. And if you choose Aurora with Postgres compatibility, which is what I'm going to choose, you have exactly the same numbers. If you choose MariaDB, the numbers again are not super good for this particular use case. And then it's going to show me some charts in which I can see the same information just in a nicer way to create a report. By the end of the document, it's going to tell me in detail the incompatibilities, and I can save a PDF just to get all the information if I want to share with someone. I'm not going to do that right now, but you get the idea. So from this assessment, it's clear to me that I should be choosing Aurora with Postgres compatibility. Of course, there might be other reasons for choosing the database, but I really like Postgres, I really like Aurora, so I'm going to do this. And now it's going to ask me for the target of the migration, and I'm going to be choosing Aurora, and the data is populated because I already put that before when I was testing my connections, and it will take a little bit, but it will eventually change all the information from both the origin and the destination database. And I have here, again, after a minute and a half or so, I have here this view. To the left, I have my schemas on Oracle. To the right, my schemas on Postgres. And on Oracle, I'm interested on the DMS sample schema, which you can see here. It has some exclamation icons, and they're in red to make me see that it was assessed, and I could have some issues here. Of course, I can see the code of the stored procedures, and if I want to see the details of what the issue will be, I can just change views, and I can choose the assessment report view. And this is going to show me again the assessment, but it's going to give me access to see all the action items. So for all the files with issues, in this case for generate seeds for this procedure, is going to tell me, well, the problem here is that PostgreSQL doesn't support the append hint that you can see it's here on the code. It's providing me also with a URL in which I can see more information about how to convert. And that's going to happen for each of the errors I have on my procedures. I'm going to check if in this one I have the same issue or a different one, just for you to see. So in this case, a different thing. It's telling me the sys date depends on the time zone setting, so I should be careful with that. It's not going to give me an error, but I might want to use a different function just to be extra sure that I'm not having any trouble. So it gives me all the information I need, and of course, gives me the information about the tables and so on and so forth. It's going to tell me which are the keys, which are the triggers, absolutely everything. And at this point, I could choose to change some of the information of the schema before I move it to the destination table, or I could just choose to apply everything as is, which is what I'm going to be doing. So I click here on DMS sample, on my schema name, and I click on convert schema. This is going to do the schema conversion, but it's not going to apply the changes yet to a destination database. So it's just going to create all the statements and all the code that I will need to reproduce on the destination database. I still have the chance to analyze that information and decide if I want to apply the changes or not. Okay, it's finished now, and I can go to the destination database, and I can see here, this will be the tables. I can see here, this will be the functions, the triggers, and so on. I can see here, for example, in my functions, this will be the code for the different stored procedures. And once I review everything, if I'm happy, I can tell the schema conversion tool to actually apply the changes into destination database. So yeah, apply to database. Yes, I'm quite sure. Okay, so it finished, and now I can see here I have all the tables. I still have some indicators where I have some issues that I have to review, but basically I have here the structure in the new database. How can I know this actually work? Well, if I go to my data grid again, now I can see it's refreshing and I have new schemas, including the DMS sample schema. For now, all I did was just creating the same schema on the target database, but I still didn't migrate any data. In order to migrate data, I could do two things. I'm going to be using the web console, but I could actually do this from the schema conversion tool, just choosing database migration view. The reason I don't want to do everything with the database migration view from the schema conversion tool is because there are a couple of intermediate steps I want you to see, and I cannot really do those from the conversion tool. But if it's not the first time you are actually running the migration, you could do everything from the schema conversion tool. In my case, I'm going to go to the browser. So how does the migration happen? Well, the way it works, we need to create first a migration instance. Let me just show you. So I'm going to the database migration service. And we have the concept of a replication instance. We also have the concept of endpoints. Endpoints are very simple. It's just the connection to your source database and your destination database. Replication instances is the way replication is done. So the way it works, you create a replication instance, which is just a virtual machine that is going to connect to your origin database and to your destination database, and it's going to be moving the data from one to the other. When you create the instance, you can choose if you want to do just a one-off replication, if you want to be replicating continuously, or if you want to do both. Start the replication from the beginning and then keep the machine up and running, replicating changes. So depending which kind of task you are doing, you want to do one or the other. So in my case, I create a replication instance here. And now that I have the instance, I can actually start the replication. And for that, I need to create a task. And I already created one here. And let me just modify so you can see better what it looks like. You need to have an identifier. You need to select if you want to migrate or just replicate continuously, or migrate and replicate. You need to choose what to do with the tables on the destination. In our case, since we did a schema conversion, we don't want to drop the tables on the target because we want to keep our changes, so do nothing. Of course, you can enable validation. It takes a bit longer, but it gives you some guarantees that the process actually is working, because it will check the original data with the target data and see if it matches. If you want to have CloudWatch logs, of course you want to have them. And here just a few things. The interesting bit is like which schemas you want to migrate. In my case, I want to migrate only this schema and all the tables inside, but you could actually choose a different combination. And then, do you want to migrate everything as it is, or you want to do any conversions? Actually, I want to convert things. In Oracle, you have everything in capital letters, and in Postgres, that's not really the convention. So I'm going to convert all the columns and all the schemas and all the table names. I'm going to convert to lowercase. So I add these conversions. So you can actually, you could choose a few actions like removing a particular column, or just adding a prefix, or do, some simple conversions here. But you will configure the what you want to do with your migration, and then you just start it. In my case, I'm going to start working from the beginning because it's this migration I ran in the past, but I drop all the data. So I want to recreate. If you have already started a migration, you could start from the last stop point instead. So after a few minutes, about 25 minutes, we can see the task has already finished. And if I click here, I can see the statistics. I can see I have a few big tables like the sporting event ticket. It's over 40 million. And then I have the seat table, which is 3.5 million. So yeah, have a few big tables here, and I can see the CloudWatch metrics in which I see the throughput for the target and the load. So that's pretty straightforward, and that's about it. If I go to my data group again here, I go to Postgres, check on schemas and DMS sample, and I have here my tables. And if I click, for example, on the sport event ticket, it's loading now. Yeah, I can see we have 40 million rows, which is basically what we had in the other one. If I go to the seed table, we have 3.5 million. If I go to the person table, we have, let me calculate this, 7 million rows. So basically everything is working as expected. So I hope this was interesting for you. In just a few minutes, we migrated an Oracle database into the cloud, and we converted this schema to make it compatible with Postgres. Not only the schema for the tables, but also for the store procedures. And we could have as easily done a different kind of migration. We could have gone from your relational database to S3 to create a data lake, or just move a data warehouse to another thing, or even do continuous replication or change data capture, just going from your database to a string like Kafka or Kinesis. So hopefully it was interesting for you. But what is really interesting is what you are going to build with it. Thank you and see you soon.